All right. Okay. Uh, So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to show everybody the picture. So this is the picture in the first chapter. This is the picture that starts with the first chapter. You see it? You guys see the picture? Yes? You guys see that? You guys see that? Okay, here's the first chapter. The crowd chanted wildly in the packed gym. The sound of their hoots and hollers bounced off the walls and boomed like a thunderstorm. Jamal sprinted down the court. He dribbled so fast, the ball almost became a blur. The score was tied. 10 seconds left on the clock, and everyone was on their feet. The game had come down to the wire, and Jamal felt the pressure of the moment. As Jamal dribbled up the court, his legs burned, his chest heaved, but he didn't slow down. Once he reached the basket, he crossed over, juke left, then right, sending his defenders stumbling backward. He pump faked the remaining defenders that jumped toward him. He set his eyes on the goal and launched the ball into the air. The entire gym seemed to hold its breath. Swish! The crowd erupted. Jamal's teammates ran to him with cheers and excitement. They mobbed him, slapping his back, giving him fist bumps, and hoisting him up like he was a king on a throne. Jamal felt relieved and happy. He grinned so wide it felt like his face might crack. He played an excellent game. 25 points, tournament MVP, and a towering trophy that had the word champion engraved on it. What a game. What a performance. Jamal couldn't wait to post all the pictures on Instagram and show his neighborhood friends his trophy. This was certainly a Saturday to remember. It was a day made of dreams. Jamal was floating on cloud nine. After this epic game and his brilliant performance, Jamal knew nothing could dampen his mood. Well, almost nothing. Sunday morning, 6:30 a.m. the next day. Jamal, wake up! The voice shot through his bedroom door like a blast from a cannon. Ugh, Jamal groaned, burying his face deeper into his pillow. He was totally exhausted. His entire body ached from head to toe. His legs felt stiff like toothpicks, and his arms felt like wet noodles after yesterday's game. Every muscle throbbed. Jamal rolled over and threw his cover over his head. He deserved this sleep. No, he needed it. It's Sunday, Mom called again, and it's time to get dressed for church. Church, Jamal whimpered. The idea of leaving the warmth of his bed for church rushed into his foggy brain like a chilly river rushing into the sea. Normally, he could tolerate waking up and getting dressed for church, but not today, not after that game. He pulled the covers tighter around him. What? No, Mom. Please, let me stay home. I need to stay home, he mumbled into the pillow. There was a pause. Then a voice came again, sharper this time. Jamal, if you don't wake your tail up now and get dressed for church, you're going to be in trouble. Another pause. Get up now or I'm going to take all of your electronics. That got Jamal's attention. Mom, are you serious? He said, struggling to sit up. He slowly rubbed the morning gunk out of his eyes and listened for his mother's response. Try me, she shot back. Jamal sighed deeply and pounded his fist into the pillow. He should have known he was going to lose that battle before it even began. As much as he wanted to defy his mom and stay snuggled up in his warm bed, electronics were too important. His PlayStation, his phone, his tablet, the laptop he swore was for school, but mostly used for YouTube highlight reels. These items meant almost as much to him as basketball did. Losing them wasn't worth it. Jamal dragged himself into the bathroom. He squinted his eyes slowly. He squinted as his eyes slowly adjusted to the bright light. His first stop was the shower. The shower was quick, barely a drizzle, but enough to wake him up fully. Although he preferred to wear jeans and a hoodie, he threw on his dark suit. Mom loved his dark suit. She always said it made him look sharp as a tack. Jamal didn't mind the suit. He just didn't like the cheek pinching he received when he wore it. After getting dressed quickly, Mom and Jamal rushed off to Sunday service. As they drove toward Jubilee Missionary Baptist Church, Jamal stared out the window. He tried to tune out the gospel music thumping from the car speakers, but he was unsuccessful. The soaring sound of the mass choir competed with his thoughts of yesterday's game. Jamal grinned softly as he thought about the shiny MVP trophy on his dresser. His soft grin turned into a full smile when he thought about returning home after church and resuming his peaceful sleep. "Mom," he said hesitantly, "why do you make me go to church every Sunday? All I want to do is stay home and sleep. I don't understand why church is so important." He waited for an answer, but the booming sound of the choir overpowered his nervous question. Mom just kept singing along, bobbing her head and tapping the steering wheel in rhythm. They pulled into the church parking lot just before service started. Mom strutted into the church joyfully. She greeted the greeters, hugged her friends in the lobby, and led Jamal to their usual seats halfway down the right aisle. From the moment the first prayer started, Jamal's arms folded like they were locked in place. He wanted to make his disapproval of being in church visible. When the choir stood and voices soared, his expression didn't move. When the church mother shared testimonies that had half the room shouting, "Amen," Jamal's eyes stayed fixed on the floor. Even when the pastor preached like his words were on fire, the crowd clapping and swaying, Jamal sat stiff as a statue. Jamal refused to display any emotion but anger the entire service. By the time the benediction came, Mom was extremely upset by Jamal's attitude. She had enough and intended to teach Jamal a lesson. As they filed out of service, Mom leaned down and whispered, "Jamal, since you seem unhappy to be with me at church, I've asked your Aunt Lula to give you a ride home. You'll be going home with her." Jamal's heart sank to his knees. His head whipped toward Mom in annoyance. "Wait, what? Mom, you're not serious. I can't go home with Aunt Lula. She drives the church van." "You mean you're going to make me go home in the church van?" "Yes," she said without a trace of sympathy. "That's your consequence for having such a poor attitude." "Mom, no, please. If my friends see me riding home in a church van, I'll be cooked. I promise. I'll be good next time." "Too late," Mom snapped back. From across the parking lot, Aunt Lula appeared like a walking parade float. Her poofy hairdo stood tall and round, bigger than a basketball. Her star-shaped earrings dangled and swayed back and forth as she pranced toward Jamal. Her entire outfit was a purple and mint green jumpsuit covered in laser bolts, sunbursts, and embroidered patches that read "Faith over fear" and "Pray without ceasing." Around her neck hung a tambourine-shaped necklace that jingled every time she moved, and on her feet, metallic moon boots with soles that flashed rainbow lights. The only thing louder than Aunt Lula's outfit was her voice. "Well, looky here. My favorite nephew," she boomed, striding toward Jamal like a cheerful peacock. "Your mama says you're riding home with me today. I'm tickled pink, purple, and plaid about it." Jamal groaned and tried to shrink into his suit jacket. "I can't ride home in that van," he muttered. "Everyone will see me." "Oh, sugar, don't worry," Aunt Lula said with a wink and a grin as she swung open the van door. "Ain't nobody gonna care if you riding home with me." "Yes, they will," Jamal sulked. "My friends are gonna grill me." "Well, good thing your friends don't have a heaven or hell to put you in. Get on in," Aunt Lula said as she motioned eagerly. The inside of the van was a riot of colors. The seats were covered in light blue and red quilted fabric squares, each one embroidered with Bible verses. There were little strings of Christmas lights looped along the ceiling, and on the dashboard sat a row of tiny bobble-headed prophets that nodded whenever the van moved. As they pulled out of the parking lot, Aunt Lula glanced over. "So your mom says you gave her a hard time about coming to Jubilee this morning. Is that true?" "Yes," Jamal admitted despondently, staring out the window. "Oh, that breaks my heart, nephew," Aunt Lula said as she yanked on her tambourine necklace. The chime from the necklace jingled empathetically. "Now I get it. I used to think church was just something old folks did because they didn't have anything better to do. I didn't really understand it either, sweetie. But then one day," she trailed off, eyes twinkling. "One day what?" Jamal asked. One day, the pastor gave me a job driving this very van. And honey, that opened the door to a whole lot more than just Sunday mornings. It changed my whole life. Jamal's look of irritation transformed into a look of confusion. So you love the church now because they gave you a job? He queried. Aunt Lula chuckled. Oh, baby, no. The job was just the key. But what I found inside, well, I can show you better than I can tell you. She reached for a big red button on the dashboard. Jamal's eyes darted toward the direction Aunt Lula stretched for. What's that button? Jamal asked. Honey, put your seatbelt on and hold on tight to something, Aunt Lula said, grinning. This is where the ride gets a little interesting. Before Jamal could ask again, Aunt Lula pressed the red button. Boom, zoom, swish. The van spun wildly. Multicolored lights flashed past the window as the van whizzed and whirled. It was as if the van had been caught up in a hyper-colored tornado. Jamal's stomach flipped over and over like a pancake. What's happening? He shouted. Don't worry, sugar, Aunt Lula bellowed. Truth, knowledge, and understanding is happening. The spinning slowed, and the lights faded. Jamal sat with his head buried in his hands until his stomach settled. Once he felt a sense of safety, he lifted his head and peered out the window. Jamal blinked in disbelief. As he gazed in stunned silence, he noticed that nothing looked the same. The world outside the van was completely different. No roads, no buildings, just endless green fields and pine trees as far as the eye could see. Standing off to the side of the van was a small group of people in worn, tattered clothes, looking at Jamal and Aunt Lula with wide eyes. An older man stepped forward, straw hat in his hands. His beard was soft and gray, and his eyes were the kind that saw hard things and still managed to be kind. Hello, son, he said, offering his hand. Name's Abe. Jamal swallowed nervously and shook it. I'm Jamal. Aunt Lula tipped her head. Good to see you again, Abe. Abe's smile deepened. Lula, you always come right when we can use a little extra hope. Jamal looked between them, his head spinning. Wait, you guys know each other? Yes, sugar, Aunt Lula said, her eyes twinkling. We've talked before. 1817 is my favorite year to visit. Jamal didn't understand what Aunt Lula meant. His heart pounded as he looked around. No houses, no roads, just forests, fields, and this gentle hill rising behind them. He didn't know what to think, but he could feel it already. Something big was about to happen. And that's the end of chapter 1. All right. So, yes. Well, who knows what God is going to do with it? Who knows what God is going to do with it? All right. So I'm excited to sign any books that you have. I guess we're going to transition outside where the signing is actually going to be. And so let's move on over.